Today I'll be demonstrating two different marinades where we explain and use the principles of marinade. First of all, that we use acids for extracting flavor from one food and perhaps imparting it to a second food group. Second of all, we'll be adding aromatic vegetable, primarily vegetable, because that's where most flavor that we perceive through olfactory is from. Obviously we have taste buds, but that's not where the aromatic comes from. It's typically from vegetable matter. Third principle is we must have time. And depending upon the strength of the acid, we will determine how long we use that acid to do it, how long we let that acid do its job. And then fourth, we need to stop that process at some point, and we can either do that by encapsulating the foodstuffs, the aromatic foodstuffs, with an oil or fat, or we could dilute it with something to where the acid is no longer effective. Now, let me show you two quick reasons. One is I'll be making a vinaigrette for basically any kind of salad dressing that we would want, or it can be used on many things, obviously. And then I'll also be making what's called a quick pickle, where we take an acid, flavor that acid, and then add simply vegetables or vegetables and meat to impart the flavor from those aromatics into the new product. And that's what we'll be doing today. First of all, the acid I'm going to be using for the vinaigrette is I have chosen red wine vinegar. Balsamic has a wonderful taste, but it also has a deeper color, which sometimes tends to cloud the vegetable, and over time will actually get to a color where it's not necessarily as palatable. Red wine vinegar is delicious, and it's relatively cheap and simple to use. I'll be pouring in just a little bit. Now, a little bit more than maybe I would with some dishes, because what I'm trying to do is actually make a salad dressing, and something that I may be able to even keep in the refrigerator for several weeks. From this point, where we have the acid, obviously what we're doing is adding aromatics. Now, with a typical vinaigrette, you might see onion and celery, or at least celery leaf, garlic, and many herbs. Here in a typical Italian vinaigrette, you would probably be using oregano and basil and marjoram, perhaps some chive, and here I even have rosemary. You'll notice here that I have tarragon, which is used in France more. This little bottle here cost me almost $6. An option with what we're doing here at Spice Road Blenders and Spice Road Designers, we've actually taken a lot of that work from you and consolidated much of the monies that you would have spent in jars like this, simply sitting in your cabinet. Today, with the vinaigrette, I'm going to use the Fattoria Italiano. It has several herbs in it, but it has garlic and onion and some other super flavors that we pack in that probably we don't want to share, but it also has a little white and black pepper. So I'm going to add just probably about a heaping teaspoon to that, and at this point I just need it to set. I'm going to allow it the time that it takes to extract the flavors from those aromatic vegetables that I found that we've mixed into that blend. I'm going to set that aside for a moment, and we're going to do much the same thing here, but this time I'm going to use the balsamic vinegar because I actually want to use some of that aspect of having a darker color. It's also going to give me a different flavor profile. Now, in this situation, I'm going to be making a quick pickle where I'm going to use two different kinds of cucumber, and I actually want some onion in that as well. So in this situation, not because of the flavor necessarily, although it will add flavor, but I want this as part of the integral vegetable of my salad. I want people to be able to chew some onions along with their cucumber. So in this situation, I'm going to go ahead and add some onion to my mix. But also in this situation, I'm going to use roasted vegetable blend. This has garlic and onion and salt and two kinds of peppers, but it also has carrot and celery and a couple of other dehydrated vegetables in that gives us that aromatic feel and blend that we want in a quality marinade. Now, one of the things that I'd like to mention is that so many times recipes say we need a teaspoon of that and a half teaspoon of this and a heaping tablespoon of that. Here at Spice Road, we understand that that doesn't always work. Different spices and herbs and blends of herbs have different flavor notes, different strengths of that character that comes from those aromatic foodstuffs. In our 100 batch formulation, 100 gram batch formulations, we actually measure some items, especially herbs, down to the 1/10 of 1 gram. We believe that it's extraordinarily effective and extraordinarily important for you to have the flavors balanced so that everything comes through at the appropriate time and the things that should linger on the palate linger for the appropriate amount of time. So in this situation, now that we've got our aromatics together from both the onion and as well as the French or the roasted vegetable marinade, now we just need to let that sit for a while. I'll be back in about 20 minutes. Okay, we're back here in the kitchen and I'm going to make the vinaigrette first because it's simple, it's easy, and it's oh so versatile for so many things. Putting it not only on salads, but using it to marinate things like chicken, to drizzle over fish after it's been baked or poached. Vinaigrettes have been used around the world for a lot more things than we use here in America as simply something to put on iceberg lettuce. Now with vinaigrettes, one of the things that really makes them pop, and it seems a little bit perhaps foreign to thought, but sugar makes the acids in the vinegar not only tames them, whatever, but it ends up stimulating two different parts of the palate. So we get more flavor, even though this sugar, like some people think, counteracts the acid. That is not true. What happens is it may mellow it a little bit, but for the most part, what we're trying to do is stimulate the palate as much as we can. In this situation, I have got the vinegar, the aromatics, and now I am going to slowly add in as much olive oil as I desire. Mostly it gives me an idea of how much I want, how much oil I want. And if you'll see here how the oil is finally starting to come to the edge even while I'm stirring it, that lets me know that I probably got about the right ratio of oil to vinegar. And that's it. Now, for the quick pickle, this isn't a lot more complicated, but I'm simply going to be doing it different. As you recall, we've got some integral vegetable, the onion, as well as the acid and aromatic mixture. I told you that I'm going to use two different cucumbers. I'm calling this mixed cucumber salad. Isn't that exotic? I'm using an Armenian cucumber. They're a wonderful cucumber. If you get a chance to grow them in your garden, a wonderful choice. Doubt you'll ever see one in the store here in the United States though. And then also I'm using a baby English cucumber. Much more mild than the long ones. They are both a burpless cucumber. For an old man like me, that's kind of important sometimes. Now this case, just like we did with the vinaigrette, we ended up encapsulating the aromatic by using olive oil. That's the important part after we've given some time, so that as this sits in the refrigerator for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, which will be still perfectly good, but if we didn't do something to prevent the acid from continuing to degrade the aromatics, it would simply get bitter and old, and the flavors would deteriorate to the point where they're just no longer pleasant. By encapsulating them with the oil, that essentially stops that process from continuing to develop, and we can retain that good and pleasant flavor for a long time. In this situation, a quick pickle, it's not going to be around very long. We're going to eat this for supper, or I might have some for lunch tomorrow, but it'll be devoured quite quickly. Still, however, because balsamic vinegar and many other vinegars are still considered a strong acid, that's going to continue to degrade the other flavors. So in this situation, I'm going to first add a little bit of sugar. Doesn't take a lot. That's probably about 3/4 of a teaspoon. I'm going to add some salt. This is more than simple marinade. We're also flavoring and enhancing cucumbers, which really can use quite a lot of salt, just because of their nature. Now, in this situation, rather than, oh, it's here somewhere, rather than putting an oil in here, as far as a liquid oil, I'm going to use the oil from mayonnaise. Mayonnaise has got a little bit of egg, a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of spice, but for the most part, it's just oil. So in this situation, because I want kind of a look of a creamy dressing, I'm going to use excuse me, the oil in mayonnaise. And you can see that with the balsamic vinegar and the mayonnaise, that becomes quite, for me, an interesting color and something that I'm more familiar with from some of the European and even Slovakian countries. This is very, very typical color here. I'm going to add the cucumbers, both varieties, the dwarf English or baby English, as well as the Armenian. And I have also got a few yellow cherry tomatoes just to make it visually exciting. The tomatoes don't add a lot of flavor, however, they're certainly nice to bite into. And let this sit for about another 30 minutes to do its thing. And here we have a quick pickle.